Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on actually the Middle East Institute that is in Washington has stressed Egypt's leadership in the renewable energy field and the direction into green energy, its role in liquefied natural gas, and also using hydrogen as a source of energy. We're going to be talking about the renewable energy file in Egypt and what the future holds in this file. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who directed today to exempt raw materials and production supplies from the recently implemented import process. The president made his directives during his meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, the Central Bank President Tariq Amer, and the Economic Ministerial Group, which included Minister of Planning and Economic Development Hala Saeed, Minister of International Cooperation Rania Mashat, Minister of Finance Mohammed Maid, Minister of the Public Sector Hisham Tawfiq, and Minister of Trade and Industry Naveen Gema. According to the presidential spokesman Bassam Radi, such an exemption would be tackled by referring them to the old system through collection documents. Radi said the meeting tackled the work of the ministerial group as well as procedures being implemented to face impacts of the ongoing international economic crisis in Egypt. During the meeting, Amer said that he presented the current monetary status, confirming that Egypt's economy could confront repercussions of the international economic crisis that had resulted from the Ukrainian war. He confirmed that the state would maintain the safe economic and financial path as well as balanced monetary position after meeting all the state's international obligations. And upon directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the National Training Academy made an invitation for a national dialogue and said it would manage it with total impartiality. The National Youth Conference, organized under the auspices of the National Academy for Training during the Egyptian Family Iftar, will coordinate with all youth and political parties to manage the national dialogue on priorities of the national work during the current phase and delivering the outcomes of the head of state. The Academy's role is to coordinate among various groups involved in the dialogue without interfering with contents or subjects of discussion. This paves the way for achieving a serious and effective and inclusive dialogue for all parties and groups in parallel with ambitions and aspirations of the political leadership as well as various political forces. The Academy will start the dialogue sessions, and there will also be an open registration on the website of the National Youth Conference for those who wish to participate, with open fields and horizons for all. The national dialogue is considered an important step to determine the priorities of national action and launching the new republic which accepts and embodies all parties. And the Presidential Pardoning Committee hailed the invitation for the national dialogue called by the National Academy for Training, which it said would open the door for serious and active dialogue that gathers all political powers without any exclusion. The committee further added that it would participate in the dialogue and called on Egyptians to share in it with the aim of realizing a prosperous and better future. Meanwhile, the Youth Parties and Politicians Coordination Committee appreciated the national dialogue invitation, accepted it, and said it would start to work on all axes and files to open pathways for community interaction on all economic, social, and political levels. The National Coalition for Civil Development Action announced its participation in the national dialogue. Also, Al-Wafd, Al-Masriyin Al-Ahrar, Humat Al-Watan, Democratic People, Al-Masriyin, Al-Tajammu, Al-Ahrar, and Sons of Egypt parties welcomed the dialogue, which is aimed at building the new republic with the participation of all sects of the society. Meanwhile, the National Media Authority welcomed the national dialogue as a quick and active translation of President Sisi's initiative to launch it. These were some of the stories making the news today, but now focusing our attention on tonight's topic, renewable energy. Now, President Sisi has expressed his keenness on expanding the plans of enhancing the role of renewable energy in Egypt. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi ordered the state to expand national plans regarding renewable energy to maximize its value to diversify the country's sources of energy supplies. This includes the expansion of wind energy through high production units to generate electricity. President el-Sisi called on strengthening efforts in light of the growing global interest in green hydrogen projects as a promising source of energy in the near future. This came during the President's meeting with the Prime Minister, Mustafa Madbouli, and the Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy, Mohammed Shakir, during which they reviewed projects from the Ministry of Electricity across the country. Minister Shakir discussed national projects in the electricity production sector from new and renewable energy, especially those that depend on wind and solar power in cooperation and partnership with foreign expertise. This comes under Egypt's strategy for integrating and sustainable energy, which aims to reach 42% of renewable energy from the electrical energy mix in Egypt by 2035. The minister also reviewed the latest cooperation developments with long-standing international experts in green hydrogen energy generation using renewable energy in accordance with the national strategy. Shakir also reviewed the timeline of electric work being done in the giant agricultural project New Delta, as well as the executive position of the electrical supply of the national project for the development of Sinai. The meeting discussed the executive status regarding the establishment of the main control center in the national grid for electricity transmission in the new administrative capital, alongside Egypt's efforts to become a corridor for the transit of clean energy and eventually a pivotal center for electrical linkage the Arab world and countries in Europe and Africa. Egypt's transformation into an inter-regional energy power hub resulted from the convergence of four main factors during President el-Sisi's years in office: new offshore natural gas discoveries, fiscal reform, renewable energy, and resource development. The game-changing event that set these factors into motion was the August 2015 discovery of Egypt's massive Zohr natural gas field and the largest Eastern Mediterranean gas find to date, with 850 billion cubic meters of gas in place.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio to shed more light on the file. We're joined by Dr. Salah Hafez, the former chairman of the Environmental Agency. Dr. Hafez, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Hafez, now, first of all, talking about renewable energy, it has been one of the hot topics over the past few years, especially after the discovery of the Zohr gas field, the construction of the 3 electrical power plants, the solar energy plant. Talking about hydrogen, also Daba nuclear power plant. So there's been a lot of talk about renewable energy trying to turn Egypt into an energy hub. Now, quite recently, the Middle East Institute in Washington and also the President has talked about expanding the work of renewable energy and its involvement in the Egyptian life. How far have we come, and how can we expand more in general on the renewable energy in our daily lives?
Well, fortunately, it worked to our favor. The time and motion and things developed in a way that helped our concept of developing energy hub to occur. We found the discovery of Zohr in 2015, and it was a huge discovery by all measures. When you talk about 30 trillion cubic feet, which is equivalent to 6 billion barrel of oil. It's a size that we don't have in this area. So this was a very good news and helped develop the energy sector at large. Fortunately, also, with the help, of course, of the leaders of the energy ministries and experts, they developed the renewable energy parallel to Dhuhr. Because at that time, after Paris COP, they were very much concerned about the fossil fuel. And they were, because of the climate change.
Yes.
Things were changing very rapidly, and the problems were occurring every year about the weather and about the gales and about the damage occurring from climate change. So making a discovery, we managed to help the discovery by developing the renewable energy. Now we have a little bit, we have many projects going on, but not fully developed yet. But the good news that we developed the same way as Dhuhr developed, and the plan is to have 61 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2035.
Yes.
And this is a jump forward in unbelievable magnitude.
Yes.
So, and at the same time, you know, we're hosting COP 27, but we will be sitting there not as a developing country seeking for finance. No, we have already done our homework. We have already developed the renewable energy quite rapidly, burgeoning the connections between Europe, Africa, and Asia to export electricity with all the agreements we've signed. And we have gone from a net importer of energy to net exporter of energy, or having more than we need internally for the consumption. So as a result, we started exporting gas. We're still importing liquid hydrocarbons, but we got into other sources of energy, green energy, like the green hydrogen.
Yes.
So the timing and the decisions and the agreements that were signed, and the luck, of course, of finding Dhuhr amongst all this development was quite impressive.
Well, if we take it step by step, if we take with the discovery of Dhuhr gas field, now, obviously, with the timing, as you've mentioned, the political turbulences taking place in Europe, everybody's talking day by day, talking about sanctions, talking about sources of energy. Some countries are against the sanctions, against stopping the Russian gas to their own countries. Some countries are for it. And we immediately thought, well, then now it's time for us to start exporting and making use of our natural gas discovery. So are we doing that? Are we not doing that? Should we be doing it directly or indirectly, for instance, through Greece? Should we be waiting until COP27 to find some sort of a formal, internationally political agreement onto how to do it? Do we have other competition from other countries in exporting gas to Europe?
No, the gas is the only fossil fuel that is, the demand is increasing. The coal and liquid hydrocarbons are on the decline. So we are exporting, and it's very easy to export. The sanctions that occurred will change the map of logistics, because the logistics, the midstream of the gas, is not like oil. Oil is easy. You produce, you store, and then you export whenever you have either spot or pre-agreements long-term agreements. So the gas is not stored, very difficult and expensive to store because of the size. So in selling in liquefied form, it's a sort of storage because you move it with a pipeline into liquefaction plant, LNG, and then you liquefy, reduce the size to 2/60th of its size by freezing.
Yes.
And then in vessels you move, which takes time. It gives a breathing space. The demand is erratic. It's not a constant because the weather may change and you need more for heating and you war and you need more energy here and there. So it is not a constant. You cannot just sell. That's why a lot of spot deals are being made. So the midstream is difficult. Egypt at that time developed the idea of having a hub, energy hub, not only gas. And there are a few hubs in Europe, like London and Rotterdam, and few small ones. They have to keep an eye on all the production in the area and the requirements, the constant, the plateau of the requirement, not counting on the ups and downs that occur in the demand. So they have the supply, they have to find there's some storage in Europe that they can store it, plus LNG, the balance between LNG and pipelines. But most of the 40% of the gas that was going to Europe was coming from Russia.
How are we, excuse me, but how are we doing on the liquefaction and storage of it? Are we up to date so we're ready on the go as soon as someone asks for to import our gas?
Well, it's not totally in our control, but because it was mothballed for a while when we were importing, so we need to import gasification plants rather than liquefaction plants. So it was put idling, and the cost of putting LNG in idling mode is very costly because you have to have the minimum amount within the system in liquefied form, and then you need it's energy intensive.
Yes.
So when we started after Doha and after we signed. Now we're using the maximum capacity of the two plants that we have in the Mediterranean, the maximum capacity. So this is good news. But we export after the war, then the market will change. Europe would like to phase out of getting their ration of gas from Russia. So they will have to go to farther places like Indonesia or maybe Australia. They get some gas from Venezuela, from Tahiti, from West Africa, and of course Qatar and Iran more into the other side. The Caspian Sea, both they go to the east and to the west. So this will have to change. They'll have to change places, and Europe will have to get from America. They're building LNGs like crazy. They have the shale gas, which is in quadrillions of reserves. So they will have to get and building pipeline. There is a sort of critical issue when you liquefy. When you liquefy, you export by vessels. When you send by pipeline, it's called one by freezing and one by pressure.
Yes.
And you put it into the pipelines. It goes through countries, so they get right of way, percentage of the gas. If it's very long or if it goes into deep waters, the cost is very high. Like what Israel wants to do to take it to Italy or through Crete. So the cost and the time. LNG is very expensive too. Cost maybe $10 billion for a few trains of LNG. So as I said, the midstream is the name of the game, and the geopolitics plays very important role. So, and the virtual hubs, there are many virtual hubs and very few physical hubs. Egypt would like to...
And what would be in the best interest of Egypt to export more and use less of this natural gas, or make sure Egypt is self-sufficient and then we export the excess of natural gas, or just mainly get into the exporting market and also rely on our other sources of energy to be at least self-sufficient?
There is what they call a synergy now between our gas and our plan to go to more renewable. As I said, in 2035, we will have 42% of our energy is coming from renewables.
Yes.
Renewable, you can produce hydrogen, for instance. Hydrogen is with water electrolysis. You separate oxygen from hydrogen, and there are fuel cells. When you put the hydrogen in fuel cells, you generate energy. So this is green. If it's produced from renewable energy, it's green. If it's produced from methane or LNG and the emissions, they call it gray. And the blue is produced by fossil fuel, gas mainly, but you sequestrate the carbon dioxide into the ground in depleted fields or other products. You do like ammonia and so the energy intensive industries, you go in without emitting any carbon dioxide. Yes. So the balance of doing all this and being seen to get, of course, we need a lot of finance for our projects to alleviate or to the negative impact that occurred already from the climate change, and to adapt to the changes that have already occurred. So this is what we're doing before COP27. It's very important for the image of Egypt because it's considered that we're far ahead. I was really surprised, although I'm following what the ministries are doing, but never expected with the push that was given by the leader of the country. What we developed and what we plan to develop in the future will put Egypt as a the main player in this area because of the connection for export in 3 continents, and making the best use out of the 1 trillion euros from the European Union to decarbonize Africa, because they're not decarbonizing Europe, but they have obligation to decarbonize. So they would like to decarbonize Africa, but they want to use more gas than liquids or coal. They're phasing out of coal and phasing out of liquid. And this is not, other countries are not very happy. So they allocated money, 1 trillion euros to Egypt, took lion's share from this and developing between the Africas, and now very soon will be exporting energy, about 2 gigawatt with the last agreement with Cyprus and Greece, and to Africa, and to Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Asia as well. So we're coming into COP27 like a peacock, having done our homework, having developed faster than really surprised the world of what we have developed the energy to become, and the planning and the quality, and going more into renewables.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned the green hydrogen, and as you mentioned, COP27, they're also very excited about the prospect of green hydrogen in Egypt. And as you've explained it, I mean, the electrolysis and how to separating the hydrogen from the oxygen, it doesn't sound so complicated. Now, is it expensive to produce green hydrogen as a source of energy, or is it not as efficient energy-wise after producing it? Do you need a lot of green hydrogen to produce maybe not as equivalent amount of energy? I mean, what's stopping us and what's stopping the whole world if it's not that complicated?
The scarce water that we are suffering from. We don't have enough water. You need 9 kilograms of water to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen. So, and if you use salt water, you have to desalinize, because the water also, when you apply the electrolysis, it ruins the system. So you have to use energy more. Well, energy is the same energy. You need to put the oxygen and hydrogen together. If you separate them, and there are losses, separate them and take the hydrogen and expose it to air, it gets and then emits energy. So energy is there, but you convert from one state to the other. So it's not expensive. The problem of water, but if you use the renewable energy, now when we're expanding in renewable energy, so you're getting a green energy, low cost if you would desalinize, and the technology is developing all the time.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Hafez has mentioned, the COP27 are very much excited about Egypt's prospects and efforts in liquefied natural gas and green hydrogen. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt's energy policy is helping to change the terms of the global debate on climate change by demonstrating that there is a basic compatibility between developing domestic natural gas resources and developing renewable energy sources. Disproving the dogma that natural gas and renewables are in a zero-sum competition, Egypt is advancing as a leader in renewable energy development while also increasing its offshore natural gas production capacity. Finding a synergy between natural gas development and green energy transition, Egypt will likely use its position as host of the 2022 UN Climate Change Conference, COP27, this November in Sharm el-Sheikh, to give greater voice to those nations, particularly key countries in Africa, that seek a larger role for natural gas in the energy transition process. Egypt will play an important leadership role in brokering reconciliation between Africa and Europe, which until very recently has discouraged investment in natural gas development. In the run-up to COP27, Egypt scored an important diplomatic achievement in promoting the simultaneous development of natural gas and renewable energy resources when it signed an agreement with the European Union on April 10, 2022, to reinforce their cooperation regarding both liquefied natural gas and renewable energy-produced green hydrogen supplies between Europe and Africa. The agreement was jointly announced in Cairo by the Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and the European Commission Vice President Frans Timmermans, the EU's leading official for the European Green Deal, the European Climate Law, and international negotiations on climate change. Brussels' engagement to Cairo reflects Egypt's leadership in establishing a new paradigm for the role of natural gas development in an effort to combat climate change. With Europe's support for Egypt's program to become a global leader in the production of green hydrogen and its derivatives like green ammonia, Cairo will continue to exert a central influence on the direction and pace of energy transition in the Middle East and North Africa.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Still talking about our energy sector and renewable energy. Dr. Hafez, now 3 of the biggest, if not the biggest, electrical power plants are established here in Egypt, and you've told me that we are self-sufficient in terms of electricity. There's been a lot of talk from the government and a lot of political will really working on transforming all our moving vehicles, the cars, the buses, the trains, the metros, everything electrical, establishing electrical stations around the country. And you've mentioned 42% of our reliance on energy should be on renewable energy by 2035. Now, how soon can we actually see this being translated seriously on the ground? People using electrical cars, people, I mean, especially with the prices of the price of gasoline on the up. I mean, it went up twice probably within a month. So there is a dire need, to use electrical energy, at least in terms of transportation. How easy or how difficult and how soon can that happen?
Well, the gas, the dependence of gas will remain as is for a while. It will be more expensive, as I said, because the map is changing of the midstream. Europe may end up getting from now they get, as I said, from Venezuela, from Haiti, from West Africa, from many far places, and east of the globe they get from Australia. Now, if Russia is not, they want to phase out of getting their gas, 40% of their gas from Russia, and gradually they will phase out of that. They will have to get from the other side of the globe, so cost of will be changed. Spot market will be different. So that's why the decarbonization and a huge amount of money allocated for that, this will help projects like what Egypt is doing now. And then you export energy, electricity. Electricity in cars, I prefer it than using gas, because gas, well, there is unwanted emissions is created from burning gas and carbon dioxide and nitrous oxides, less so than liquid hydrocarbon. But it's a mobile source, so the pollution is not controllable as when it is stationary, like a power station, either renewable or with fuel. You can control the emission as much as you can, and then electricity is moved and used without any further emission.
Yes.
So for the climate change, electricity is better, and we have already started doing that. But also gas, because gas is better than other fuel, so less harmful.
Yes.
Don't say better, but less harmful.
Yes.
To the climate. So there is a transition period. What we're doing now is we're managing this period of transition very, very shrewdly and diligently. Like Europe, they're changing into gas more so, because and phasing out of the liquid and coal as a transitional period, and then spending money. They're not happy in spending in finding more gas. Of course, the big oil companies, they do so. But it is a transitional period, but we have to abide to what we have agreed upon in Paris in 2015, that the temperature should not go above 1.5% by the end of the century. Otherwise, the money spent for adaptation of changes and to stop the temperature to reach this plateau, if it is later than that or earlier than that, then the cost is very high, and the consequences are not easily conceived, because if it's half temperature, we can more or less tell, but if it's 2 degrees in a shorter period, then consequences it will be very deep.
Dr. Hafez, what about I mean, it's such a luxury when we talk about all these different kinds of renewable energy here in Egypt. And now let's talk about the solar energy, the Ben Ben plant, also the windmills in Ras Gharib. How dependent can we be on these two sources of renewable energy, and how efficient can we be to utilize all the energy that we can be getting from those two plants?
The 61 gigawatt expected, the highest is from the photovoltaic, and then about 32%. 18% from the stationary solar, because of the higher, it's high tension. You can produce high tension. Photovoltaic, it's lower tension, so it's used in the transportation. The losses is high.
Yes.
And the wind energy is developing very, very rapidly, amazingly rapidly. I was a board member of the institute of the organization that was developing the renewables when I was working for the environment and the petroleum sector. And things were prototypes, very small pace. Now I travel to the Red Sea more often, and it's amazing the development of this.
Yes.
And very soon it will represent a very high percentage at any level.
Well, do you think that we should be actually establishing more solar and wind plants? I mean, going on the other side of the western side, the western desert. I mean, we have huge, big landscapes that we could make use of Egypt's really sunny weather and the vast open spaces that could generate a lot of wind energy. Should we be working on establishing and building more of these wind and solar power plants?
Well, wind we know the maps exactly, and it is changing with the weather. Because the wind, the surface wind, either from the depression, high depression or low depression, or the absorption of heat to on the surface of the earth, and the emission, the hotter area, they emit faster than the cooler area. Yes. Then the wind moves sidewards. So we have maps, but maps are changing all the time. All the time. You may select an area, and in 2 years, things change. And the development also, the desert, or the green areas, or the concrete areas, or the sea for this matter, yes. they emit in a certain level and absorb and emit. So it is changing. But what we have in the Red Sea area is definitely, it's a sustainable wind, ideal area for windmills. Some other areas are still looking into and seeing if the curve is going up, then they're considering putting. But this is easy to identify the areas and the usability of the areas of that. The sun, of course, is easier. The cost is still high of the sun because of the stationary. They cost money, but the technology is developing, and as I said, we're now the contribution of the solar energy or the renewable energy is about 6% between the high dam, or 7%. The high dam and what we have now, and we're going to 42% and the 42% with more than all what we have now.
Yes.
So this is the growth, how the growth is going to be.
Well, do you think, I mean, you've explained that maybe the wind and solar plants, they would be much more efficient as a source of energy for the surrounding areas because of the transportation. A lot of the energy would be depreciating, and also it'd be costly. 42% by 2035, is it a realistic goal to achieve?
With the pace we're going along now, I'm very optimistic.
Yes. Well, another source of energy, and obviously we've been talking about it for years, the nuclear Daba power plant. I mean, it's an on and off sort of project. I mean, sometimes we get a lot of focus and attention, a lot of agreements being signed, and then we don't hear about it for a while. But it is an Egyptian project that we've been looking at and counting on for many years. Where are we in terms of actually establishing and building and hopefully seeing some sort of a result, nuclear energy in Daba?
Well, the rule is there are 10% of the energy power generated in the world is nuclear. And the nuclear is, the upfront cost is a little high, but then the enriched uranium is available under strict control. And the waste is recyclable, so you can use, because when you finish one phase, there is 90% that you can reuse again. The other type of nuclear, the fusion, this is the fission and the fusion. The fusion, when you get smaller molecules and fuse them together. The fission is with the neutron, you break them up, so energy is released. I have always advocated that we have to go to for the security, because the security of energy, if you have like Saudi Arabia or countries like this, you have unlimited amount of any sort of energy. But we are a big country, big economy, and population is high. So we have to go into nuclear energy. So we did, and it's going well, and it will increase in the future worldwide because of the weather, global warming, which is a real problem. I mean, it's a devastating. It can ruin planet Earth to that extent. Yes. So the nuclear energy is, and the big power, they control the energy map by sanctions.
Yes.
Or wars. You know, the geopolitics plays a very important role in all types of energy, the liquid or the gas.
Yeah. Well, do you think that the nuclear energy would be part of our 42% that we would achieve in 2035? Or we're not going to make that?
No, it's not. It's not renewable. They say that the reserves can keep the existing plants, about 400 nuclear plants in the world, for 80 years. But in 30 years, they expect the fusion to come. And fusion, it can be considered renewable.
Yes.
Because they use water. So we have 70% of planet Earth is covered with water, plus the underground and so on. So, but it will not. It's not renewable. It's not considered the traditional one.
Okay, Dr. Hafez, one final question because we're seriously running out of time now. We are hosting the COP27 in November. You've mentioned now Egypt is entering this summit as a heavyweight, and it's on our turf. So what do you want us to achieve? How can we showcase and flex our capabilities and muscles in terms of being an energy hub and having this huge potential in the energy sector among the international community? What do you want us to achieve?
Having developed the synergy between the fossil fuel represented by gas and renewable and green hydrogen and fertilizers and other things with green method, and our capacity to export in all three continents, this will put us in a very, very special status.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, on that very hopeful and realistic note, as Dr. Hafez has mentioned, the energy sector, Egypt being an energy hub, is not a just talk. I mean, we are walking the walk, and it will be manifested in our exports. It will be manifested by 2035, having 42% of renewable energy, will be manifested in the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in November. A lot to be hopeful for this sector and for the Egyptian life and economy. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. And before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Salah Hafez, the former chairman of the Environmental Agency. Dr. Hafez, always a pleasure having you with us on the show. Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.